Welcome to Life Stories. Imagine discovering that the person you've trusted with your entire heart, your partner, your best friend, has been hiding a secret so big it shatters everything you thought you knew about them. What would you do if you found out they were living another life, a life you never knew existed? That's exactly what happened to Sophia. In one moment, everything she thought was real crumbled to the ground. The life she had built, the love she had cherished, all of it was suddenly called into question. In today's story, we dive deep into the raw emotions of betrayal, the painful road to forgiveness, and the tough choices we face when the truth is too much to bear. Stay with us as we unravel the twists and turns of a life turned upside down. Let's begin. Sophia had always believed in the simple comforts of life, her mornings filled with the smell of fresh coffee, the rustle of pages turning in her favorite books, and the quiet rhythm of her home. Her husband, Jason, was everything she needed: dependable, loving, and for the most part, predictable. They'd built a life together that was calm and steady, like the soft hum of a well-oiled machine. Every Sunday, he drove to his parents' house, a ritual that had become a familiar and comforting part of their lives. He helped them with small repairs, mowed the lawn, and took care of the things they couldn't manage themselves. In return, Sophia would pack him a bag full of homemade jars of pickles, apple pies, and her famous sausage rolls. It was her way of showing love, not just to him, but to his family as well. She took pride in their shared moments, in the small acts of care that kept them all connected. But lately, Jason seemed different. The small things she once took for granted, the way he looked at her with a quiet tenderness, the way he'd run his fingers through her hair when he thought she wasn't looking, had started to fade. He became distant, often staring out the window, lost in thought. He was working long hours, she knew that. But it was more than that. There was a shadow in his eyes, a heaviness she couldn't ignore. Still, Sophia didn't question it. She assumed it was just the stress of work, the weight of the projects he was juggling. She did what she could to comfort him, packing his favorite meals for the drive, offering him quiet companionship in the evenings. She never imagined that the real storm was quietly brewing, just out of sight. One Saturday, after weeks of feeling the distance between them growing, Sophia woke up with a sudden urge to do something different. She wanted to surprise him. Without telling him, she decided to take the food to his parents' house herself. She felt a strange, restless energy, as though something inside her was waking up. She packed the familiar jars of pickles, a few warm apple pies, and some sausage rolls, just like she always did for Jason's visits. She dressed quickly in her favorite sweater, grabbed her keys, and headed out the door. The car started up with a familiar hum as she drove away from the city, the landscape unfolding before her like a postcard: vast fields, a patchwork of colors that spoke of autumn's quiet glory. The drive was peaceful, and for a moment, Sophia felt at ease, as though nothing could disrupt the world she had carefully built. As she neared Jason's parents' house, a chill ran down her spine, though she couldn't place why. The dirt road that led to their little cottage was the same as it had always been: rustic and charming, bordered by wildflowers and the scent of pine trees. But as she rounded the corner, something caught her eye. Jason was standing on the porch, not alone. He was with a woman. Sophia's heart stopped. This wasn't just any woman. She wasn't a neighbor or a casual acquaintance. She was holding a child, a little boy no older than 5, running toward Jason with open arms. The boy looked up at him, smiling, calling him Dad. Jason, in turn, crouched down to embrace him, his face soft with a tenderness Sophia had never seen before. For a moment, the world felt as though it were tilting beneath her feet. Sophia stood frozen in the driveway, her hand still gripping the door handle, unable to process what she was seeing. Her stomach churned, and her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to scream, to run to him and demand answers, but her body refused to move. The boy was laughing, a sound so innocent and sweet, and yet it shattered everything Sophia thought she knew about her life. Jason's eyes were filled with something raw and unguarded that Sophia hadn't seen in years. Not since the early days of their relationship when everything had felt like magic. But this wasn't magic. This was betrayal. She stepped back, feeling a wave of nausea rise in her throat. She turned, stumbling toward the car, her heart pounding in her chest. The tears started as she slammed the door shut, the engine roaring to life, and she sped away, not knowing where she was going or how to stop the storm inside her. Every mile that passed felt like 1,000, her mind racing with questions she didn't want to ask but couldn't ignore. How could Jason do this to her? How could he hide a whole other life from her, a life with a child, with a woman who wasn't her? As she drove, the rage inside her grew, mingling with the hurt and confusion. She wanted answers, wanted to confront him, but deep down she was afraid. Afraid that if she asked the questions, she would hear the truth that would destroy everything. She pulled over on the side of the road, burying her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. How had she missed this? How had she been so blind? Sophia didn't know how long she sat there, her emotions crashing over her in waves. Finally, the tears stopped, and in the silence that followed, one thought pierced through the fog of her mind. What now? She couldn't go back to the way things were. She needed to know the truth. She needed to understand what had led them to this moment. She drove home, her thoughts a tangled mess. As the door closed behind her, Jason was sitting on the couch, his face tight with tension. When he saw her, he stood up quickly, but the words he had prepared seemed to stick in his throat. He was waiting for her to speak, but Sophia had no words. Not yet. All she could think about was the child. The woman, the life he had kept hidden from her. Would you forgive someone who deceived you for years, or would the truth be too much to bear? Can love survive the destruction of everything you once believed to be true? She didn't know how to begin, or if she even could. But one thing was certain, everything was about to change. And the hardest part of all was yet to come. The house was eerily quiet when Sophia walked in. Jason hadn't said anything as she entered, his silence hanging heavy between them. She could feel the weight of it pressing on her chest, the tension thick enough to choke. For a moment, neither of them moved. Sophia stood at the door, her heart racing, her mind still reeling from what she had seen just hours ago. Jason was standing by the couch, his eyes flicking to hers with a mixture of guilt and something else. Fear, maybe? The same fear that had clouded his eyes during those recent weeks of distance. Sophia, he finally said, his voice hoarse, barely a whisper. Please, let me explain. She didn't move, didn't answer. Instead, she felt her body trembling. But it wasn't from the cold. It was from something deeper. An anger she didn't know how to control, a hurt that burned so fiercely it threatened to consume her. She thought she had known him, thought she understood him in ways no one else could. But now, she felt like a stranger in her own life. Jason stepped toward her, but she took a step back. She couldn't bear it, couldn't bear to be close to him when her entire world felt like it was collapsing. You lied to me, Jason. Her voice cracked, the words sharp, raw. For how long? How long were you going to keep this secret from me? From us? His face crumpled at her words, and he looked down at the floor as though ashamed to meet her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you, he said quietly, his hands trembling at his sides. I thought I could keep it all together. I thought I could do right by both of you. By you. And by Luke. But I was wrong. Sophia's stomach churned at the mention of Luke's name. She wanted to scream, to tell him that she didn't want to hear his excuses. But the truth was, she did want to hear it. She had to understand. She needed to know why he had kept this from her for so long. She needed the answers, even if they destroyed her. Why didn't you tell me, Jason? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper now. Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth? You knew how much I loved you, how much I believed in us. Jason ran a hand through his hair, frustration and regret written across his face. He stepped back, pacing in the small space between the couch and the door. It wasn't just about you, Sophia, he said, his voice strained. It was about Luke. He's my son, and when I found out about him, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could come clean without losing everything. Sophia felt a sudden weight in her chest. You have a son, she repeated, the words tasting foreign on her tongue. The magnitude of it hit her again with an intensity that made her dizzy. A son? And you've been keeping him from me all this time? From us? Jason nodded, his expression pained. I was afraid you'd leave me. I couldn't risk losing you, not after everything we've been through. I thought if I kept it all a secret, I could protect you from the hurt. But I failed you, Sophia. I failed both of you. The ache in Sophia's chest deepened, but beneath it, something else started to stir. Something sharp, something fierce. Betrayal. She had trusted him. She had built her life around him, around the quiet assurance that they were in this together. And now? Now it was all a lie. You think you've been protecting me? She asked, her voice rising. By lying? By living a double life? How is that protection, Jason? How do I know what's real anymore? He flinched at her words, as though each one cut him deeper than the last. I never wanted to hurt you, he said again, the desperation in his voice growing. I loved you, Sophia. I still love you. But I was caught in something I couldn't control. I was trying to keep both worlds apart, but in the end it was too much. It's all falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it. Sophia wanted to scream at him, to tell him how much he had shattered everything she believed in. But instead, a different thought took root in her mind, a darker thought. Could she really forgive him? Could she really go on, knowing that the man she had loved had hidden such a monumental part of his life from her? The silence stretched between them, suffocating. Finally, Sophia spoke again, her voice cold, steady. What about Alina? What's your relationship with her now? Jason's face tightened at the mention of her name. He hesitated, his eyes flickering with guilt. She's the mother of my son, Sophia. Nothing more. We're not together anymore. We haven't been for a long time. But I can't just turn off the fact that I'm his father. I can't pretend Luke doesn't exist. He's a part of me. Sophia felt the knot in her stomach tighten even further. She thought she understood, but now it felt like she was drowning in a sea of conflicting emotions. The man she had married, the man she had trusted, had been living with a woman and child he had never told her about. And now he was asking her to understand. Jason took a step toward her, his eyes pleading. Please, Sophia, I don't expect you to forgive me. I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I wanted to do right by you. I wanted to be the man you believed in. Sophia stood there, torn. She felt the truth swirling around her like a storm, battering her from all sides. Could she forgive him? Did she even want to try? Her mind raced, memories flashing before her eyes. Their first meeting, their wedding, the quiet moments they had shared, now all overshadowed by the revelation of this other life he had kept hidden. But could she ever truly understand the depths of his choices? Could she ever trust him again? The room felt smaller now, the walls closing in. Jason was waiting for her, but Sophia was waiting for something else. She needed time. Time to figure out if she could live with the truth. Time to decide if she could forgive him, or if this was the end of everything they had built. Do you believe in second chances when betrayal runs this deep? Or is it too much to overcome? Can you forgive someone who has kept a secret this big? Or does it destroy the foundation of everything? Sophia looked at Jason, her heart heavy with uncertainty. There was one thing she knew for sure. The next step they took would either bring them back together or tear them apart forever. As the truth sank deeper into her soul, Sophia had to ask herself one final question. Could she ever look at Jason the same way again? Or was everything they had built simply a house of cards, waiting to collapse? Sophia woke up the next morning with a heavy heart. The silence of the house felt oppressive, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for something to give. She sat on the edge of the bed, her fingers tracing the outline of the duvet, her mind replaying the conversation from the night before. Jason's words still echoed in her ears, but they didn't bring her the comfort they once would have. The truth had settled in, and now it was part of her, woven into the very fabric of her thoughts. There was no escaping it. She stood up slowly, her feet cold against the floor as she walked toward the window. The city outside looked unchanged, untouched by the storm that had broken inside her. She watched the morning sunlight dance across the rooftops, but even that beauty felt distant, far removed from the turmoil churning inside her. Jason was still asleep on the couch. The night had been long, filled with too many unsaid words, too many unanswered questions. She had wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but she hadn't. Instead, she had retreated into herself, letting the silence do its work. Now, standing there in the quiet of the morning, Sophia knew she had a choice to make, a choice that would determine everything. Could she rebuild what had been shattered? Could she forgive Jason for the life he had kept hidden from her? Or was this betrayal too deep, too raw to ever heal? She thought of Luke, the little boy she had never met, but whose presence in Jason's life had shaken her to the core. Could she accept him? Could she accept that Jason had loved him, cared for him, all this time without telling her? And what of Elena, the woman who had once been Jason's partner, the mother of his child? Could she forgive her too for the part she had played in keeping this secret? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of Jason stirring on the couch. She turned slowly, her heart racing. He was awake now, his eyes meeting hers with a mixture of hope and fear. His face was drawn, the lines of worry deepening around his eyes. "Sophia," he said, his voice soft, almost pleading. "Please, just give me a chance to make this right. I've made so many mistakes. I've hurt you more than I ever intended, but I swear I never wanted to lose you." She looked at him, and for a moment, she saw the man she had once fallen in love with, the man who had been her anchor, her constant. But now, that image was blurred, tainted by the reality of his actions. She wanted to believe him, wanted to reach out and hold him, to feel safe again. But she couldn't shake the image of him with Elena, of the love in his eyes as he held Luke. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Jason," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't know if I can ever see you the same way again. You've kept a part of yourself from me, something so important, something I should have known. How do we move past that? How do we go back to what we were?" Jason's shoulders slumped, the weight of her words sinking in. He stood up, slowly, and walked toward her. His eyes were filled with regret, but there was something else there now, acceptance. He didn't expect forgiveness. He wasn't asking for her to forget. He was asking for the chance to rebuild, to earn back what he had lost. "I don't know how to fix this," he said quietly, his voice raw. "But I'll spend every day trying, if you'll let me." Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, the tears she had been holding back threatening to spill. She wasn't sure what was harder, living with the pain of his betrayal or letting go of the life they had built together. She thought of their wedding, their shared dreams, the plans they had made for the future. All of that felt like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the secrets and the lies. But then she thought of Elena, of the way she had spoken to her with such quiet honesty, her understanding of the pain Sophia was feeling. It was then that Sophia realized something she hadn't allowed herself to understand before. Jason hadn't been trying to deceive her. He had been trying to protect her. He had been afraid of losing her, afraid of the truth tearing them apart. He hadn't known how to navigate the complex, messy web of love and responsibility he had found himself in. Sophia took a deep breath, her heart heavy with the decision she knew she had to make. She walked toward Jason, her steps slow, unsure, but steady. When she reached him, she placed her hand on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palm. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet," she said softly, "but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to work through this with you, if you're really ready to do the same." Jason's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The silence between them was filled with understanding. They had both been broken, but there was a chance, just a chance, that they could heal together. Sophia knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be days when the hurt would resurface, when the weight of their past mistakes would feel unbearable. But for the first time in what felt like forever, she believed that it was possible. That love, even in its brokenness, could be rebuilt. Later that day, Jason and Sophia drove to the small town where Elena lived. Jason was quiet beside her, his hand resting on the dashboard, and for the first time in a long time, Sophia felt the warmth of his presence without the sharp edge of betrayal. They arrived at Elena's house in the early evening, just as the sun was setting. Elena greeted them with a small, tentative smile, and Sasha, the little boy, peered out from behind her legs. Sophia took a deep breath as she stepped forward, the bag of homemade pastries in her hand. She walked toward Elena, meeting her gaze. "I brought these for you," she said softly. "I thought we could start over, if you're open to it." Elena looked at her, her expression softening. "I've always respected you, Sophia," she said quietly. "And I think we can find a way to make this work." As they sat down together, sipping tea and talking about nothing and everything, Sophia realized something. The road ahead would be difficult, and there would be moments of doubt and pain. But in that moment, with the sun setting behind them and the warmth of shared understanding in the air, she knew that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to heal. Do you believe that love can truly be rebuilt after betrayal? Or is the damage irreversible? How do you think forgiveness can be earned after so much has been kept hidden? If you enjoyed this story, please comment 100 to show your support. Where are you watching from? Share this video with your friends, and thank you for being a part of the Life Stories channel.